Hello, and welcome to another episode of Architecture for Kids podcast. I'm your host, Antonio Capelão. I'm a trained architect, an architectural educator, and founding director of award-winning Architecture for Kids CIC. In this podcast, I'm going to talk to practitioners and creatives that share the same passion as I do, to inspire and to engage children and young people to shape their built environment and the creative industries. The podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the Built Environment Trust, the Thornton Education Trust, and the Welsh School of Architecture, Cardiff University. My guest today is Sarah Phillips, Head of Education at Open City. Sarah runs a wide range of education programs across special educational needs, primary, secondary, and sixth form, for young people from groups currently underrepresented in the built environment sector. She taught at a large state sixth form college for 15 years and wrote the current History of Art and Architecture A-level specification. She was principal examiner and served on the National Society for Education in Art and Design Council, writing regularly for AD magazine. Determined that the arts shouldn't disappear and that the fatal combination of English baccalaureate and chronic underfunding, Sarah works to demonstrate the value and links between art in all dimensions and the rest of the curriculum at all stages. Sarah, thank you for coming to talk to me today, and I'm very much looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a privilege to be here, and I'm excited to talk about a topic which is very close to my heart.
What was your favorite subject at school, and what was the subjects that you were good at?
I think I'm a bit of a jack of all trades. I liked sport, I liked art, I liked writing. I was okay at most things. I did maths and science later on as well. So I don't think I have a single answer to that, which probably explains why I'm doing what I'm doing now, because I do think that all young people deserve and need an education which inspires them to find what they're passionate about.
How did you get to head of learning of Open City, your trajectory?
I have been a teacher for 15 years, teaching both history of art and architecture and English, literature and language at both GCSE and A-level, to a hugely diverse and wide group of students, which was a huge amount of fun. Particularly with history of art and architecture, I used to take them on a lot of trips to discover the city, other cities and environments that they hadn't been to before, and saw for myself again and again how that out of the classroom learning is what can be really transformative to young people. So, as you said, I wrote the A-level and turned that the A-level I inherited didn't even have a woman artist on it, or let alone an artist from the global majority. So I took that on as a mission to make it a global subject, and that was a fascinating and fantastic job. So I wrote that specification and then was Pearson's senior examiner and for 5 years, teaching teachers, writing and market papers, and then felt very strongly that the funding system in schools and the way schools are administered is seeing creativity disappear out of the curriculum, and that joy of creativity disappear out of children's lives. And that, I think, is something we can't allow. So I left teaching in order to join Open City as their head of education, because that is a charity that looks to put that joy and magic of discovery, of opening the city, of exploring the built environment sector. And all our young people are citizens of the future. They're all living in the city now. They're noticing, they are the eyes and the ears of the city. They notice all kinds of things. We need to listen to them. We need to work with them. They are the people who have the solutions and the innovations for the future. And of course, it's their city, not mine. So that's my motivation.
What does it need to change in the curriculum, and how we're going to change that?
Well, I'm sure if any of your listeners are parents or teachers, they will already be aware of the EBAC, which is the system that governs schools and in secondary in the UK and prioritises students learning maths, English and the sciences above any creative subjects. So the school will get a score if the student does well in physics or biology, but not if the student does well on art or music or drama. And that's had a disastrous knock-on effect in that the resourcing for those creative subjects has fallen away, the funding has fallen away. If it can't be seen in the results table, there is a mentality that says it doesn't matter. And of course, we all know that it does matter hugely for a huge number of children, that the joy or the passion they get from their creative subjects is what takes them to school to flourish, to do very well in all sorts of other subjects. And they are not for a moment denying the importance of maths and literacy and sciences. But without any creativity in there, we are not growing a next gen who will be able to join the dots in different ways. We are not going to need rote learning in the next generations, because we will have AI doing that for us, but we will need teamwork and collaboration, compromise, the ability to, I'm not going to say make a mistake, but to do something and do it a second time and do it better. We've created a system where you get one shot at something, and if it's not an A, you're a failure. And then we wonder why we have an increasing mental health problem amongst our young people. And to me, that's not rocket science. There's a really clear trajectory there about not listening to young people, not giving them the opportunity to flourish at what they're good at and what they're interested in, and allowing that enthusiasm then to percolate all those other areas, because you've got them on side and they understand that they need to be able to do the maths as well as the drawing if they want to become an architect. Then you're working with them. If you're force-feeding a student and just telling them you must do this first time right, it's not a constructed situation. So I think that's where we need to do some serious rethinking about the curriculum to make it.
And now are we going to do that?
I do have some ideas. We do need a very different approach. We have an unfortunate system of measuring people by the number of A grades they get and validating them by the number of A grades they get, and then the salary that they earn. That doesn't measure the contribution they make, or their flexibility, or their adaptability, or their teamwork, or their ability to inspire the people around them. So we need to rethink how we are designing the curriculum and what we are valuing. And a very reductive curriculum that says you must only be good at these things. And then, of course, they want everyone to have maths, but with the maths GCSE system, there is a quota of students who must fail every year, because that's how the GCSE is organised. It should be organised like a driving test. If you have the necessary maths skills, you passed your maths. And therefore, if 100% of the year group have all been well taught and inspired and have those and demonstrate those skills, then they can all pass. But that isn't the system we have. So there are some fundamental changes that are needed. But at the same time, we have a teaching workforce that is literally on its knees, because we've had change after change after change thrust at us, and a hideous pressure from Ofsted and, as I said before, EBAC, the cuts in funding, the cuts in time for curriculum, time to talk with individual students, and the wider cuts around social care that mean that teachers are picking up so much more of those things with their young people. And that's vital. But it's not a bottomless pot. And there's so much goodwill from the teachers that it's a fight, like everything in the world. It's a finite resource, and we need to be a little bit more conscious about looking after the resources we have.
Teachers and guardians and carers need to be doing more about this conversation about the curriculum.
I think it's difficult, especially if you don't have grown up in this system, or if you haven't taught in this system, you don't understand the implications of these changes. You hear at face value, oh yes, it's a good idea for everybody to be good at English and maths and sciences, and of course it is, but you need to understand where the knock-on effect of that is if you have more of that, you have less of something else, or even none of something else which is happening. So yes, I'd like to see more from parents and the media in terms of pushing back against that agenda of only one grade. You are only recognised as an A grade student. If you don't get an A grade, you can crawl back under the woodwork. That we're all different. We need to celebrate that and find what we're all good at, and then work together on those things. So yes, I'd like to see more from parents in terms of challenging that, but I think that's difficult. I think teachers are in an even more difficult situation because they are, as I already said, really hard worked. they are part of a cog in a wheel of your senior management and your governors, and then you've got Ofsted breathing down your necks there. So you speak out at your peril in that system too. So that comes back to the systemic change that is needed to make a system that is more around recognising individual passions and strengths and not expecting every student to do the same thing and only be measured against that single binary.
Talk a little bit how Open City came together and how the learning sort of center has sort of evolved within the organization. The projects you're working on the Open City.
So I'll do that first about the projects, because it actually follows on really nicely from the question about how we should change the curriculum. So the Open City projects that I have the privilege to run now are looking to address exactly these gaps, to put in place passion, creativity, teamwork, collaboration, to talk with students and listen to our young people rather than talk at them, and to understand their lived experience, what they would like to see change in their city. And we partner in our primary project, which used to be called Architecture in Schools. We've just renamed that actually as Young City Makers, because they are literally making a model city, but they will also, we hope, we are giving them the tools to engage with the making of their city in the longer term. We partner them with a design practice, an engineering practice, an architecture practice, and those volunteer adults go into school and explain their job to the young people, and the young people explain their experience of the city, how they got to school, what's good about their school buildings, what's good about where they live or not. And then we take them out somewhere else in the city to explore another part. We're talking in London, so in London. And again, those school trips are another thing that have fallen out of the curriculum as a result of funding and lack of priority given to those. So being able to reintroduce a trip or offer a trip to our students is hugely important to me, because, as I said, I've seen how that can be transformative learning. So we take students out to see spaces, to be in spaces, experiencing that firsthand, with the expert eyes and pointing out of those engineers or those architects or people who are working in the built environment themselves that it's a teamwork, it's not people talking at them. And then those volunteers go back into school and the children make models in 3 dimensions of the London or the part of London they're in that they would like to see. So we are encouraging them to think broadly across a number of different issues, to consider heritage, to consider their own sense of belonging, to consider their own future and opportunity in this city. So they're not reductive, right, wrong questions. They're questions that they need to work together as a class and to come up with ideas, to refine their ideas together. They learn to speak well about, to be able to articulate what changes they want to see. And they're very powerful. And so that is a primary project that we run that's fantastic. And we've got nearly 1,500 young people, 8 to 10-year-olds in East London, starting out in the autumn term. We're currently working with our first iteration of students in West London doing that project. And then we go on through the pathway of school ages. So we, in year 10 and 11, it's very difficult to get them out of school because those teachers are under all those GCSE pressures. So we go into schools with young, early career professionals or undergrads who come from those communities. So, it's that thing, you have to see it to believe it. So we take those people in who are only 5 or 10 years older than the students. I just sound like everyone's mum, but they are a bit more inspiring and a bit, wow, they're cool. And we take them in to explain again how they got to what they're doing and what they're doing. And then for sixth form students, we have a program called Accelerate, where young people, as individuals, not as whole classes, who want to explore the potential of a career in the built environment sector, are invited to apply for a series of Saturday workshops. And in those, we teach them the artistic skills they need, because again, we've only got 3 subjects at A level, so a lot of them are unable to fit art or DT or anything creative into that. So they need the confidence to develop those art skills. So we teach them those skills. We get them to meet a whole range of diverse practitioners across London. We take them to different sites so that, again, they can see those ideas at first hand. We give them mentoring and work experience with professional practices. And again, then they get that industry insight to understand, is that what they want to apply for at university? Because, of course, for this generation, that experience is going to cost them 50 grand. Again, not something I had to do. So I feel really guilty about how my generation has mucked up education and housing and all sorts of things. So, getting those young people the right information to make the right choices for them is really important. So that's a totally free program that now exists across London for 100 young people from underrepresented groups, as you said earlier, to participate completely free in that program to help them make the right decision for them.
How easy it is or how difficult is to engage children and young people into these programs you are putting together?
I sometimes feel guilty about how much I get from them rather than they get from me. The inspiration from these young people is just fantastic. So I don't find engaging them a problem. I really don't. I find, and perhaps that comes from coming into a school or a group, not bringing that pass-fail mentality, not bringing that A grade or you're a disaster mentality, and coming in and saying, I genuinely, and it is really genuine, want to hear your ideas and your experiences. And whether or not you want to become an architect or a designer or an engineer, as you said, we will all live in the built environment sector and work in it or study in it or exist in it. So in that sense, we all do need a say in how it's constructed. And if it has historically been constructed by a very small minority of men from a certain specific background, that's not going to be representative of all the different communities that want to use the built environment sector. And that's clearly not right, is it? So I think young people have full of fantastic ideas. If we don't come to them by saying, you've only got one chance and you've got to get the right word, otherwise your answer is wrong. And I'm not going with that. So I think as a teacher, I find what I do now a huge privilege because I know that I'm contributing to their enjoyment and engagement and dynamism and learning in a very memorable way. And, we all know that with the best will in the world, you don't remember your best essay you wrote, but you might remember the person who inspired you to write it, or the trip that you went on where you made a really good friend, or you saw something that blew your mind. The children learn by doing, not by being talked at or by writing things. That's fine for passing an exam, but that's not what we want our kids to do. So what we're doing as Open City is what it says on the tin, opening the city, opening ideas, minds, and recognising people as the very talented individuals that they are, especially because they all bring different experiences to the table and different backgrounds and different rituals and ideas. And the world that we live in is so much richer for that. And I'm not talking clearly on the monetary level.
How do you establish this relationship between Open City and the school?
That's the difficult bit, because teachers are in front of their classes all day long. They don't have a phone or a desk. As the teacher, you are fully engaged with the students. You can't say, I've just got to go take this phone call. So making those connections with teachers is difficult. And yeah, you probably know, I come from a teaching background. I speak that language. I can understand where these programs can make the teaching learned easier. For instance, we had one primary school where they were doing ancient Egypt as their topic. So we took them for their city visit to the British Museum, and they saw the Egyptian columns and the mummies, and then the city they built, their model city, was dedicated to the god Ra. They made a school inside a pyramid. They made an obelisk monument to the National Health Service. And the teacher said, we've never delivered that topic of Egypt in such an engaging and memorable way. And the children couldn't stop talking about it. It was lovely. So that kind of doing, that really helps. At secondary school, all teachers and schools are obliged to give their young people careers education, because we didn't have the joined up thinking to work out how many careers advisors we have in UK schools. Clearly insufficient by a factor of I don't know what, huge. That we can't do that, and yet schools are obliged to do that from this non-existent funding. So those are the frustrations that happen as a teacher. So from that point of view, the programs I'm offering, I can tailor to those. They're called the Gatsby benchmarks, which always makes me giggle, because Gatsby always made up his background. But I think that's a very ironic statement on the English education system. But so the careers engagement, the opportunity we have to introduce students to the offices of architects or engineers, or to take them to sites or hear those role models speak, they are very valid and very valuable, but clearly not things that, if I'm a history teacher or a physics teacher, why would I have any access to that? So yeah, that's why doing a role at Open City for a few years is, every year you go by, you build up more teachers that you work with and ask to have a go, hopefully, if I'm done it big.
Do you think things are changing in a positive way in terms of youth engagement?
I don't think there's a steady trajectory. I think there's been some highs and some wins and some losses. Post-pandemic, most schools used up what remaining equipment there was in their art cupboards and DT cupboards to send out to students for home learning. And then there was never the budget in place to replace them. So again, I've changed our Open City programs to make sure that we provide all the materials that a school needs, and hopefully a little bit more, so we can address that issue. So that's a change. Similarly, we've talked about 4 trips not happening so often in schools for budget and time reasons. So us changing our offer to offer more of those, but in a more supported way. So we produce the workbooks, we have staff to go with students, we do all the logistics. All of that makes the teacher's life much easier, and that's a win as an outcome, even if it's taken much more effort from us to get to that point. I think there is genuinely a lot of interest from the built environment sector about working with young people and being part of the programs, and that's really great to see. A lot of them will say they struggle with the point that we talked about earlier, that it's difficult to get hold of teachers because they're always busy in the classroom. And so they might find, if they're an individual company, that the only schools they can get hold of is the one that their own children go to, or that somebody in the company's children go to, and therefore they're not necessarily reaching that broader, diverse mix of Londoners that we have all across the city. So they'd also appreciate the fact that we can be that link agency between the school and built environments. I think the momentum is there, and that's going in the right way. I think the need is there. I'm not sure if that's the right or the wrong way. There is more need, which is bad, but at least what we're trying to do at Open City is keep the door open to some creative education until there is that governmental shift on what should education look like to really prepare our young people for a future, which is going to be collaborative and team working and innovative and creative, and not individual. And I think that's one of the things that makes me sad about that a lot of the education is all about what grade do I get, and that's competitive. Because if I get an A, there are only so many A's, so you've got to get a B. Whereas actually, we would be better to each recognise what we're good at and then work together to solve a bigger problem.
How does that relationship between Open City and the professionals are? Do they already have some experience?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because actually, even if you're a parent, you might be a parent of 1, 2, 3 or 4 kids. You are very unlikely as a professional engineer or architect to have had experience of inspiring and engaging 38-year-olds at one time. So yeah, that is daunting. And when you're working in secondary school, it's kind of even more daunting, actually, as those hormones kick in year 9. And one of the things I love about working with children is they will definitely tell you when you're boring them. So that can be quite scary. So yeah, and we offer youth engagement training for all the professionals that we work with. And that is partly statutory, helping them through their DBS check, safeguarding, those absolutely vital things that are fundamental of working with any young people. But it's also about tips for inspiring young people. It's about how to chunk up a lesson. It's about how to deliver a trip, what you need to think about. Again, when you take a trip with your family, you don't necessarily drop where we're a public, where there's more than 10 cubicles or things like that. So we will take all our professionals through training to make sure that they have the skills and the confidence to deliver those workshops. And we ask of them that the same person, if they're doing a program, that same professional does both sessions, because those relationships for many young people they don't have many opportunities to talk to professionals outside their family network. So that's a huge opportunity. And if that person comes in a second time and says, oh, Antonio's here today, I can ask him this. And maybe I was shy the first time and I didn't get in a class the third day, I didn't get my moment to ask my question. So if you come back in a second time, you're building a relationship, which can again be transformational. So yeah, we provide the training. We give them lots of support all the way through, often come to the workshops as well, not to teach, not to intervene, but to be an extra pair of hands and a bit of moral support, and certainly on the trips as well, because some of the schools we work with have 4 classes in year 5. That's 128-year-olds. That's quite a lot to marshal. So, some immune victorious to add in that.
What other challenges we haven't talked about?
We're no more immune from that pressure than the schools are, and that is the huge challenge. We are a small charity. We also run the Open House Festival, which many Londoners will know opens up to 800 buildings across 2 weeks in September. So half our team are working on the Open House Festival, and then there's a group of us working on the education, but a very small group, and another group working on tours and audio tours and the podcast. So we're a small charity and we don't get any national funding at all. So yes, funding is always an issue. So, and that is sometimes frustrating, because I think if I could spend less time looking for funding, I could double the amount of time I could be in schools and delivery workshops and the impact I could have. Yeah, funding and time and an insane desire to be in more than one place at once, because there's a lot of young people who are very inspiring, but need time. We will need time to think things through and talk.
For the parents and the teachers and the guardians and carers that are listening to us, and the young people, what can we say to them to inspire them?
I think get involved. Reach out to Open City. We'd love to, whatever age, wherever you are in London, we would love to work with you. Through the Open House Festival in September, there will be buildings open all across the city that are normally closed to the public. So make the most of that. That's a fantastic opportunity. Take your children, show them different spaces from different cultures, different religious spaces, different educational spaces, different houses, different houseboats, number 10 Downing Street, all sorts of things. And I think we live in an amazing multicultural city, but it's only amazing if you take the time to look at it and notice it and listen to your children and let them, that they are amazing and have a lot of those ideas. So I think what I'd say to them is get involved. And if you're not sure how, email us at Open City or listen to the podcast or come to the festival.
Was there a question I should have asked you that I haven't asked you? What is that question?
I don't know. I think I would say that I couldn't do what I do without the team of people. And that's both the team at Open City. I have 2 fantastic people in the education department, Sean and Siraj, who are just amazing, but also the wider team, as you mentioned, of those volunteer professionals across the built environment sector, those teachers who go in day after day after day, giving it their utmost in a situation where they never get valued. So I guess that's the last piece of the puzzle that's, to me, really important. And the parents and children themselves who are so inspiring. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much to my guest today, to all the listeners, and please subscribe to Architecture for Kids podcast and leave your rating and a review. Recommend us to your friends and family, and to find out more about it, visit our websites antoniocaplan-portfolio.co.uk, buildingcentre.co.uk, thorntoneducationtrust.org, cardiff.ac.uk, and follow us on Instagram, Arch for Kids CIC, Twitter, Ant Kaplan, LinkedIn, Ant Kaplan, CAPELAO, and please join me again next week for another episode of Architecture for Kids podcast, brought to you in collaboration with the Built Environment Trust, the Thornton Education Trust, and the Welsh School of Architecture, Cardiff University.